So hello, everyone. Welcome to Workshop 8A, Estamos Llegando a Puerto, Adoptee Documents and Personal Archives as Portals to Past and Present Journeys. Angela Sharp is an Ecuadorian artist and transnational transracial adoptee, and she is based in Brooklyn, New York. Teresa Arana Migliassi is a Chilean photographer who has given talks in the US and Chile, including ASAC, the Alliance for the Study of Adoption and Culture in California. Before we begin, I want to introduce myself. I am Annette O'Connell. For those of you who know Claudia at AFFCNY, I am her assistant and part of the communications and conference team, and I will be your moderator for the Zoom today. I just want to remind everyone, as we do in every workshop or presentation, training certificates are available. You must have your Zoom name listed exactly as the name that you would like to appear on your training certificate. One certificate will be given for all of our workshop hours. So please, if you can wait to fill out the form until the conference is complete, that's much better. I am going to put the link for the training certificate requests into the chat box. I'm also going to put two other links, one guiding you to our Greenlight Books book table fundraiser, and the other one to our conference workshop evaluations. Those are so very important to us here at the Coalition to make sure that we get feedback on how everyone is enjoying things. Please know if you do have any questions during this workshop, you can feel free to put them in the chat. I will be moderating that the entire time. Unless the presenters specifically ask for anyone to unmute themselves, please do keep your microphones on mute because we do need to be able to hear everyone clearly. Additionally, I have already spoken with Angela. She is going to email me a PDF of her slides and everything. So then I will be putting those into the event within the network. And we want the conversations to definitely continue in there. So with that, Angela and Teresa, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Annette.
Thank you, Annette.
So just want to say welcome. Thank you so much for attending and watching our presentation. As Annette mentioned, my name is Angela Sharp, and I'll be co-presenting with my colleague. I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. I'm going to let my colleague introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Teresa Arana. I'm based in Chile, and English is my second language. If you don't understand something, let me know, please.
All right, fabulous. I'm going to share my screen now, and we will begin. All right. So the title of our project, as I'm sure you all have read, is Llegando a Puerto, Adoptee Documents and Personal Archives as Portals to Past and Present Journeys. So in this collaged image, for the beginning of our presentation, on the left, that's a picture of Teresa for one of her personal archives. And the picture to the right is one of my documents as a child in Ecuador. Let's see, trying to go on to the next. Okay, so a little bit about Teresa and myself. We first met at the ACAC conference 2018 in Oakland, California. So it was the 7th biennial conference for the Alliance of the Study of Adoption and Culture in cooperation with Adoption Initiative. So we were actually in the same panel for a presentation. And after we finished, I went up to Teresa and we were both like, I liked your work. I liked your work. We just saw so many similarities between the two. And we knew we wanted to stay in touch. And since then, you know, we're friends and we're looking to collaborate more in the future together. So Teresa, as she mentioned, she's Chilean and she works in Chile as a photojournalist and freelance educator. And I am Ecuadorian, raised by my adoptive family in the US. I currently live in New York City. I work as a digital storyteller and an arts educator. And the picture on the right is from the conference in 2018 in Oakland, California. I'll let Teresa do the next slide.
about our project, Estamos Llegando a Puerto, it means we are arriving at port. Adopt documents and personal archive as portal to past and present journeys. This workshop examines two adoptees' origin stories as individual and collective artworks, incorporating institutional documents and personal family archives. The photograph, letters, and official documents present starting points to explore lost past and histories. The two artists navigate the impacts of forcible migration, emigration, colonization, identity, class system, trauma, abandonment, and loss both in their lives and their archives. Simultaneously, we preserve, recreate, and reactivate their own voice of resilience, cultural reclamation, and self-empowerment. No, you salt. I don't listen.
Sorry, I was on mute. I think that our slide jumped, but we will.
Yeah, I noticed that.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I noticed.
Okay.
So we are connected by stories of poverty, malnutrition, political unrest, of mother deny access to resource and separate from their children, of adoptive families and adoptee journeys.
So important themes that both of our work touches on is the archives. So as we're this is just a little bit of introduction about how our work is connected. And then after this, Teresa is going to present her work and I'll present my work after that. And we'll kind of draw it all together. But as you'll see in both of our projects, are both personal and institutional archives. This is where it all began for both of us for our project. So as I mentioned here, it says archives have memory. Another important theme is the activation of our voices, both Teresa and myself. So telling our own stories as voices of authority through lived experiences. And as you'll see too in our projects, we noticed, especially in my project, I did it for my graduate degree, and I realized a lot of what I was finding in the literature was from voices of authority that they're not necessarily always involved in the adoptee triad. So I thought it was super important to have adoptees' voices as part of the literature and the stories. Emotions as well, the emotional aspects of our project. It isn't about the statistics of adoption per se, but rather what is in our hearts in regards to the project. Another theme that ties us together is visual storytelling. We both are visual artists, so we use the archive as a foundation where we began to create and expand on our stories.
Archives have memory. We were not blank page. You adopt us with our past. Saru Birley, Indian-born Australian author of Lion, A Long Way Home.
So I'm not sure if I feel like a lot of people have seen the movie, The Lion, but Teresa mentioned that this is one of her favorite quotes.
Yeah, I love this book. Personal archival document. The first one is from Angela. She is going to explain. And the second one is a letter I found from my father that talk about the day he went to look for me at the orphanage. Next.
Yes. So just a little bit about our little family will be home. My family, excuse me, had trouble bringing me to the US for the first time. So this is an article in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania newspaper telling the story of how my grandma helped calling politicians to eventually bring me to the US. All right, so we're going to show you a couple of images next about our own personal archives. So this, in 2005, I went back to the first time as an adult to Ecuador. I just wanted to know more about my history, my culture. And so I met the woman who ran the orphanage where I was born. She was an American nurse and missionary. And so when I went to her apartment, she showed me this album. So she's like, oh, I don't remember. She's like, I don't remember you per se. She's like, but you know, welcome. Kids come back all the time. And then she showed me this album and we started opening it up together. Oh, I think that this is jumping. Not sure why.
The other.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, technical. So here is another image that I saw in her personal archive. So as you could see, as I was looking at this book for the first time, her name was Martha, and just seeing all these images of babies and pictures of the children with their adoptive families. So Martha said, she's like, when the children were sent to the US, there were 50 children sent to the US from her orphanage, El Buen Pastor. She said that she would get letters from the family saying, thank you so much for our child. And then she started collecting this personal archive album of hers. So this is the mixture of slides that you see. And then this is my page that I actually found. So it was a little bit surreal to be looking at this album, family album of this woman, and then find my own page. So my parents had sent her some baby pictures. And then at the top, you see this like metadata, which Martha wrote, taken by missionaries. And in Shell is the town that they lived, and it says Sharps. And then there's a number at the top. It might be hard to see, but it says 42. So I think she named each adoptee that came in to the orphanage. And then here's just, and this is another personal album, but this is from the family that I grew up with, my adoptive family. So on the right, just a picture of my mom, my adopted mother, she created this for me. So pictures of her and me as a baby. And then on the left, a picture of my brother and my dad. And then this is an album I created when I was little for school.
This is my adoptive family album. I created this one. Next. These are some photographs. First me at the school, then me, then with my family, my mother and my dad. And another photograph, the second photograph, it's me on the beach, and then my father's at the south of Chile. Oh, it jumped again. Here is a gift I gave to my birth family. It was an album with some photographs together about our first time meeting. It's jumping again.
I know, I'm not sure why.
If you just scroll down in order like that, you don't even have to zoom in. I think we
Okay.
have a pretty good, can everyone see that? If you could just put yes or no in the chat or give a thumbs up.
It's working.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. Sorry about that.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's
Thank you.
fine.
All right, so we just showed you some personal archives, but also, as we mentioned before, we also have some institutional archival documents. So I'll let you read these on your own, but basically, you know, a lot of my research too in school was saying that these official documents, like they hold so much weight. But as I myself looked through my personal documents, I came to find out that they weren't, there could be lies and there could be discrepancies. So, and these adoption papers too, right? They're the proof of our identity. It's the switch from the families that we were born into, and then that transition to the families that we were adopted into. So in this paperwork, the next couple of slides, Teresa and I both combined some of our adoption papers. So this paper on the left is my official adoption, one of my official adoption papers. And it's basically just, saying that this is official. My parents are adopting me from the US, official. And then down here, there's a signature with my birth mother's name. But like when I first met her the first time in 2006, I showed her these papers and she's like, oh, that's not my signature. So it really, caused me to question these official documents. And I'll let Teresa explain the document on the right, which is hers.
Thank you. This is my birth registry. Here I have my first name. It's not Teresa Arana Migliassi, it's Teresa Antunes Avendaño. So it was very powerful to see at the first time. And this document at the left, you can see the testimony that begins my adoption process. My neighbor reported to the state that I was malnourished.
And the paper on the right is one of my certified copies of my adoption papers. And this is an English translation, but I also have a Spanish translation. So we thought it was very interesting too, how the paperwork is very similar, even though mine's Ecuadorian paperwork and Teresa's is Chilean.
Angela, how did you get your paperwork?
My mother who raised me, my adopted mother, she gave me my adoption papers. Yeah, so she had kept them. They had lived in Ecuador, so I was born there and lived with them up until I was 8. But my adopted mother was the one that gave them to me.
Thank you. We talked about this in a workshop earlier today, so I'm trying to correlate it all. Thank you.
Yes, sure. But Teresa had a different process to get her paperwork, which seemed more complicated.
Yes, I had to write to the CENAME, its adoption institution. And it was a long process because my father doesn't have the papers.
It's so crazy, so crazy. Thank you.
All right, next we'll go to Teresa and she's going to tell us more about her project.
Yeah, you can. My project name is Palimpsest 1226-2012. Palimpsest means a manuscript in which the original text has been erased by scrapping or otherwise to rewrite a next text. And I present the project as a photography essay that shows adoption and the search for origins in autobiographical way, visually and narrative describing a personal experience. The narration is guided by photograph from my personal archive, documents from CENAME, National Service for Minors, and a manuscript from my father. The investigation process began when I found out that I was adopted in 2012. We've begun the search for my birth mother through the CENAME, the adoption institution, who had already given me the documentation of my case, 12/26/2012. CENAME started the search, but after more than a year without results, I searched for it on the internet and found it on Facebook. Later, the institution also found my mother. With Teresa, my birth mother had the same name. We met in 2014 at the bus terminal in Talca, Chile. On this trip, I also met one of my brothers. I have 2 brothers, the youngest, whom I include in the photographic story. The story is explained from the most intimate and at the wrong time. It is not in order of visit to her home, but in an emotional order in how I was approaching them. Photography allowed me to show my sensitive through its contrasts and blurs. In every detail, something happened internally. Then everything was treated with the text, thus giving strength to the story. Palimpsest is the trace of a writing that was erased to write a new text that preserves features of the previous one. For this reason, the word palimpsest, deep down there were the trace of a story that is mine, but that for a time was hidden, giving place to who I am today. This is my father's letter.
Teresa, do you want to mention like a little bit more about how you found these letters of your dad's?
Yes, I was cleaning the house. Then I found a carpet, a folder. I found a folder, and inside the folder have each page. And my father was writing his memories, and this is like the secret part hidden in this folder, you know. And that was the first part of the letter, you know. So it was, oh my goodness, I'm adopted. To meet my mother, I have to take a trip because I live in downtown and she lives at the south of Chile. So I have to take a bus and go to meet her.
So all these black and white images are of your first time meeting your birth mother, Teresa, and your brother, correct?
Yes.
Teresa, is your brother older than you or younger than you?
Or younger. He's younger than me.
So do you want to explain a little bit about this document, Teresa?
This document have the testimony too of my neighbor. I talk about, but this is the begins my adoption process because she said I was malnourished to the state, so everything started with this testimony.
Teresa, who's the woman in this photo and the child?
She is Teresa, my birth mother, and Felipe.
Your
And the hand is from Felipe, my brother.
So when you met them the first time, they were showing you these family photos, correct?
Yes, indeed.
And this is Teresa, your birth mother?
Yeah. Yes. And this was a muñeca. This was a play from Teresa. This is from Teresa.
This is your birth mother's doll?
Dolls. That's the word. Sorry. Yes. Yes.
So we're looking at her house. Like when you're there, this was like you.
This is her house. Yes. And it was curious about this image because it's reflect the childhood, you know. Or I reflect my childhood. Maybe I don't know. So it was curious.
Indeed.
Yeah, this is a mascota, a pet, her pet. She have a lot of pets.
And Teresa on the right.
Yeah.
And then Teresa, this document, is this your birth mother? Her?
No, this is social assistant, social assistant,
Social services.
social services. Yeah, like she don't have money, she don't have a place, and another stuff too. But in this part, I put that.
So social services comments on your birth mother. Like,
Yeah, social service comment. Yeah, they talk about her sexual life, and at some point, and I was so impressed, you know, because why? But I don't put that. I think
they really had a lot of information, it sounds like.
Can you just go back, Angela, 1 second? I'm just curious, Teresa, did you, I'm pointing to my screen like you can see what I'm pointing at, I'm sorry. Who redacted that? Who put the black box? Was that you or was that social services?
The adoption institution. They give me my adoption paper, and everything have this black.
Even in Chile,
Yeah,
even in Chile, they do it.
but
They redact.
it's so. I'm sorry, but I think it's so stupid because I take this paper and I put at the sun, and I see it, and it's like, do you want to know? Do you want to don't know what is
Oh, it
going
was
on?
literally like with marker or pen that they did. It was literally marker that they did it with.
Market.
Wow.
Well, that's how they used to do it here.
Yeah,
But
I
then
know.
they
Some
realized that
people-
too many people could hold it up to
Too
the
many
light
people
and
held
read
it
the
up to the light.
information.
Yes, and
Teresa,
they-
you're in, oh yeah.
yeah,
You're in the process right now of getting that information though, is that correct?
again, yes, 10 years later, I ask again for my archives because I do this project and everything is messy with my documents. So I say maybe I can add for a new document impress, and I don't get it now still.
It's
So I'm
amazing how
waiting.
it's even in Chile, it's the same. Thank you for
Service.
going back. I'm sorry to interrupt again.
Oh no.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
Interaction is good.
Yeah. This is my brother, Felipe.
The images are so strong, Teresa. So strong.
Yes, I want to put that one more, yeah, pequeña, more or less, because I don't know, it's a sensitive photograph. No, I don't.
But I think your training as a photojournalist really comes out. Like you're showing us the scene where you're at.
This is her place and her hands. She is preparing. She is cooking a cazuela. A cazuela. I don't know how to say that in English, but it's a soup with potato and chicken and zapallo. I don't know how to say zapallo, but a soup. On the left photograph, you can see my birth mother with some pet, and she's she's talking about my story. At that moment, I'm asking her what happened, and I wanted to have that photograph to remember how she was at the moment, like what happened with her, and I think I got it.
You absolutely got it.
Yeah. This is my father.
So this is one of his letters that we had seen before.
Yes, this is at the page 8, the last page.
And Teresa, you don't remember exactly how old you were when you were adopted, but you knew you were young.
Yeah, yes. I don't remember if it was at 1 month or 1 year, but yes, a little.
Old enough to throw pants.
Hmm?
Old enough to throw your pants at people.
I think it's amazing that you found this document and that you have this archive. Like it's just it's really incredible.
It's absolutely incredible. And it's what makes it more incredible is that how people who are not adopted don't understand how incredible it actually is. Right? They don't
Yeah.
understand how powerful that picture of your mother, as she was telling you her story, is.
Yes, we talked about that with Angela, about the need of adoption, because I'm adoptee and I know about adoption, but when I knew for the first time I'm adoptee, it was like, oh my goodness, I don't know everything about adoption. What is that? So that is powerful, because you have psychology, maybe sociologists or mother who adopt, but it's that is a need, and then the people doesn't care really.
And the fact too that you were older, you were how old are you when you found out?
22.
Yeah. So I mean that must have been a shock up until then.
Yes, but I always ask that, like that I'm adoptee because we don't look similar, or another things like I don't have any photograph before 3 years old, or my CTE, no, my identity document says I was inscribed in 97, and that is real. And I don't know, little things makes me doubt.
So you always felt a little bit different from your family. You always thought something, but never knew until you found these letters.
Yes, and I always think if that it's going to be real, it's not. I think I was thinking something like it's nothing happened when I knew, when I know that, but when I knew, it was so different that I imagine, because I imagine in another way, because I never question me about what is going on before you knew. Like, oh my goodness, who is my birth mother? Who is my birth father? I got brother. What is their stories? They have disease. I don't know. She's a nurse. She's an artist. Maybe I'm an artist because my mother is an artist, or my father is an artist, because in my family I don't have any artists. So you ask a lot, and when you see it, when you see your birth mother, it's look the same as you, is wow. It's wow. It's amazing.
You guys look
But
so much alike. Yeah.
yeah, yes, you're going to see her soon, because it's timing, emotional timing, the project. So
Teresa, do you want me to keep flipping through? You let me know.
yes, next this my brother and my birth mother. She's Teresa.
Wow.
And this page is on color because I found my identity. She is Teresa at the mirror, and I am at the right side.
Look so much alike.
And that day, it was born Teresa de Jesus Arana Migliassi in 1997.
So this is your birth mother, Teresa. This is her words, correct?
Yes, I want to put her voice too. And this is me with Teresa at that moment, you know. So that's the project. This year I will publish a book about palimpsests, 12, 26, 2012 project. So I hope you like it, the project.
And if anyone's interested in a book, just we'll have our contact information at the bottom. You can feel free to message Teresa, and she can make it happen.
Oh, I would love that.
I saw previews and it looks beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you, Teresa. So I'm gonna go and tell a little bit about my project. This is a quote that I read in grad school, and I just love it. And I think it really relates to my work. And Teresa's, there are stories and data, complex and contradictory stories full of emotion and drama, disappointment and achievement, violence and love. Let's find ways to tell those stories. It was written by Tim Sherratt. He's a historian and a hacker and co-creator of a website called The Real Face of White Australia. So I highly recommend when you have time to check it out. He uses, like in Australia, the Chinese community, even if they were citizens, were targeted. Racist practices back then, so they had to have cards, identity cards. So his project looks at, as he calls it, the real face of white Australia. So highly recommend it. I'm gonna share with you this video, which is a good introduction to my project, and to get you to see a little bit about what my work is about. Maybe I will pop it out. That might help. I'm not sure.
I was born in an Ecuadorian orphanage and adopted when I was a day old by North American missionaries. I was raised not knowing my culture or the Spanish language. In 2005, I traveled back to my birth country of Ecuador. While there, I met Martha, the North American nurse who started the orphanage El Buen Pastor, the Good Shepherd, where I was born. Martha showed me an album she had created with photos, news clippings, and handwritten notes sent to her by parents that had adopted children from her. I found my page in her book. Her album became the starting point for this project. This site is rooted in a personal story that looks at international adoption through multiple perspectives. It is intended as a way to begin to normalize the process of deconstructing one's identity and as a starting point for our dialogues to take place. Although this is a story about my journey, there are in fact 50 of us that were sent to the US. We are intertwined. This is our story. In the thesis, I highlight Martha, as well as my adopted mother, Marianne, and my birth mother, Amable, whom I met for the first time on January 21st, 2006. All three women are essential caregivers to my story.
One day I got a radio message from our office in Quito, and he just said, "Marianne, we have a good one for you." He didn't want to say anything over the radio because that was public, but I knew what he meant. And her daddy was out on a preaching trip, and I knew he was getting home that morning. I was grabbing stuff, shoving it out on the front porch, loading up everything that I could think of. And he got off the bus and he came over to the steps and he looked up and he said, "No." And I said, "Yes." So we headed capital city. It took us 6.5 to 7 hours. And she was born on a Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And I first held her Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock when she was 24 hours old at the clinic.
Well, I'm right in front of the clinic that I've been using and doing for the last 57 years. Now, I won't tell you how old I am, but I love it here and I love to help people. There was twins, a boy and a girl. The boy got the breast and the girl got the bottle with rice water and sugar and died. When I saw that, I thought, well, I better take care of this one. And they were very glad to give it to me because they knew what would happen, but they just couldn't take two, especially if it was a girl. And I knew if I didn't take them, they'd die.
Se supone que la pobreza de mis padres me enviaron a trabajar en otro lugar, quizás lejos de mi madre, de mis hermanos, el cual uno tuvo que aventurar muchas cosas. Y toda la vida ha sido difícil, peor para una persona de una provincia, ir a una ciudad y un bebé en brazos, muy difícil. Hacer parir, puja, puja, ya sale el bebé, llevaron. Y a mí no me dijeron, mira tu hijo, no dijeron es mujer, es varón, es nada. Ese trauma a mí me escondieron, ya nunca me pude imaginar que iba a volver a encontrarte. En cambio tú ya tienes, criándote con otra familia, ya tienes cultura, tienes una educación, y tienes algo bueno en la vida. No quiero que te sientas rechazada, que a ti no te queremos, nosotros te queremos mucho, 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 mucho.
Yo soy el chulita quiteño, la vida me paso encantado. Para mí ella es un sueño, bajo este mi cielo amado. Las lindas chiquillas quiteñas son dueñas de mi corazón. No hay mujeres en el mundo como las de mi canción. La Loma Grande y la Guarapa son todos barrios tan queridos de mi gran ciudad. El Panecillo, la Plaza Grande, hoy en el sello inconfundible de su majestad. Chuyaquiteño, eres el dueño de este precioso patrimonio nacional. Chuyaquiteño. sin la joya de este Quito colonial.
Right.
It's always amazing.
Thank you. Yes, so here's my website. You did see it in the video. I think the video did a pretty good job of explaining what my website is about that I created for my master's thesis. Yeah, if anyone's interested, you know, obviously you'll have the link. You saw I have images of the photo album, Martha's photo album. And then I highlight the caregivers, which is Martha, my mother who raised me, and my birth mother. And each of their pages too, it has the video that you saw, but longer, a little bit longer in length. And then too, I have documents on each of their pages. Like Martha has a lot of documents because she was a missionary. She had missionary letters. So feel free if you want or interested to check out their pages too and to look at their archives. So as I mentioned in the video, the next phase is trying to locate the rest of the adoptees from my orphanage. I to date have met with 6 of the adoptees. So that's like, as I call it, phase 2, building out. And so these are some of the adoptees that we see right now. It's Stephanie, John, Joella, and Marissa. So you as well can go to each of their page. For example, let's press on Stephanie. I met with Stephanie in 2018. So there's a whole long story to how I met these people, but this is Stephanie's page. So when I first met her via email, I shared this image with her and I was like, you don't know me, but I'm doing a project. Is this you as a baby? And she got a little freaked out. But then she said, that's me. And luckily she decided to talk to me. In 2018, I went to visit her in Missouri, and her dad, he was an engineer. And so he kept all of her adoption papers. So when I was there, we looked through all her adoption papers and I scanned it. So this is a snippet, an archival letter from Martha to Stephanie's father. And this is Stephanie, I have part of her interview that we watched. And then this is Stephanie and her dad, and we're at the dining room table looking at the archival materials. She just has so much rich information. So I'll let you all, when you have time, if you're interested, to look at all the treasures. Oh yeah. Do you have a question?
So Angela, everything you have is from your parents, right? That's what you said, that from your adoptive parents had, or you found when you went there, right? You somehow obtained those. Have you, my direct question, because I'm kind of stammering, sorry. Have you ever tried to FOIL your records, to FOIA request, Freedom of Information request your records?
I have not. Yeah, like for me, the only records I have are the ones that my mother who raised me saved and showed me. I haven't never tried. I mean, I go to Ecuador often, but I've never tried to dip my toes in the legal system there to try to get more, see if there are more official documents. I haven't tried.
Yeah, it was some, I told you earlier that, you know, there was the earlier presentation that really kind of coincides with this to a certain degree. That was on the deportation of transnational adopted people. But there is a way for you to put in a FOIA request too, to see what the government has as far as all of your records go. I was just curious if you had ever done that.
So we're talking about the U.S. government?
The
Is that-
US
State
government,
Department.
yeah.
Yeah, the State Department should have
State
stuff.
Department has it, yeah.
No, I would love to do that.
All right, so
Well,
let's go.
You know, it's funny in it because I know Greg says that he has to do FOIAs on them, but you know, when I was down at the State Department well, I guess whenever it was in 2019, that was the one thing that they said was like, they have adoptee records and they actually like to give them to adoptees. They were like, yeah, we give them away. Like at least that's when Trish was still there, because they were like, the only problem is that when we give them to everybody, they have to understand that we're giving them the originals, and once they're gone, right? Like, but they were very, I mean, at least at that point in time, the State Department was very much into not being the ownership of them. So I would almost say start there, because they're
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you. I never even thought about trying that.
Yeah, the adoption department at the state, like they're pretty good. I mean, I find them to be at least very receptive.
It'd be interesting too, because in that newspaper article, like, I guess my parents were trying to bring me from Ecuador here, and they're having problems, and that's when my grandma stepped in and was writing and calling government officials to try to get me over. So I wonder if I'd be curious if that's in the record as well.
Could very well be.
Yeah, like
Who
you would do
knows?
it through the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And again, as we were discussing before, I don't think people were actually in here. These are things that, as a board member of Adoptees United, that we help people with. So that's why I keep interjecting everything. So I'm always like, oh wait, I have to.
That's amazing. No, I love this collaboration, because it's so hard to know what all is available. So
Yeah, I'm gonna put the link in here, but definitely, contact me afterwards too, because we should chat about all of this kind of stuff.
I would love that. Thank you.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat.
Awesome. So I'm going to wrap up soon. I just want to talk a little bit about another phase, and then after that we'll wrap it up and then see if any questions. So I have the website. I do presentations at different locations with digital media, adoption conferences, but I'm also interested in seeing it as well, like from the archives, how to expand. So this next phase is I'm working with the adoptees that I've interviewed to tell their story and to showcase it in art galleries. So I don't have it on the front page. There is a page though where I am showing how these are two. I have two. This is John, and below him is Joelle. These are two adoptee stories that I have had in two art installation shows. So you see them on the wall. I think they're about 8 by 8, and then underneath is a QR code, which you see to the right, and then viewers can scan these codes and listen to a story that each of them share with us. So I also on my website included, in case people might not have access to scan the QR codes, I also have the interviews below. So I just want to do just 2 short excerpts from each of those interviews, just to give you a little soundbite of their story. So we're going to hear a little soundbite of John. It's about a minute long, and then I'll do like a minute of Joelle's. And John, I met in 2018 and interviewed him. So we'll listen.
I'll never know what a brown person feels like on the inside, because I didn't grow up in a brown family or around brown people. I don't know what brown on the inside is, because I've never been brown on the inside, like how they think or preferences or desires or inhibitions. Although I have a twin brother that's brown, which knows exactly what it's like to be a brown person. So yeah, I can empathize or share experiences with people, which is nice. I could get an insight into what they felt or how they feel, but it'll never be a first-hand experience. It'll only be a second-hand experience. All
right, so that was John's excerpt, and then I'm going to just play a small excerpt of Joelle's, and I met her in 2018 as well and interviewed her. The little soundbite we're going to listen to her, it's a little bit of a funnier one, but I highly recommend if you have time to listen to it the whole way through, because at the time that I interviewed her, she had just come back. It had been maybe 3 weeks since visiting Ecuador for the first time as an adult adoptee. So at some point in the interview, she really gets a little bit emotional, just kind of reflecting on that recent trip back to Ecuador where she was born.
I wouldn't say it's like I was
searching for my identity or feeling like there was a lack of identity growing up, because I really didn't have anybody really sharing about what the Ecuadorian culture was like. And I really wasn't seeking that or needing that when I was younger. I grew up just basically feeling more white than anything else. And I remember when I was in college and I would get these envelopes in the mail, and it would be for like the ethnic diversity luncheon for any student to come and join and have lunch and share their culture or whatever. I didn't really know, but I would keep getting these letters. And I said to one of my friends, I just said, I don't understand why they keep sending these to me. And she's like, have you looked in the mirror? Because you're not really white. I'm like, I know, but my ethnic culture is like funnel cakes from from Pennsylvania Dutch land. You know, I didn't learn a whole lot about my Ecuadorian culture and background growing up. So yeah, I grew up very Pennsylvania Dutch.
All right. So thank you for listening to that. Just wanted to give you a little soundbite of what's in the works. So basically, we're going to draw it to a close. So in conclusion, we basically touched in this presentation about domestic and international adoption between both Teresa and myself. You know, so we talked about differences, there's some similarities, and our reunion stories. Also, another important thing to mention is the complexity of telling a story, both as a researcher / practitioner, but also telling a personal story and the emotions that brings up in the process. I said that we'll talk, Teresa and Angela will discuss what it was like for them. So we could do that maybe at the end if anyone's interested. We could go a little bit about how that process was. Another point, adoption as a niche issue that should be discussed freely and not be a taboo subject held in secrecy. So we're hoping that these projects will start to open up the doors for what can be at times difficult conversations for those to take place. And also appreciation for our birth families to trust us enough to tell us their stories and to share it with others. As we mentioned in our preview video for this discussion, Teresa and I both know that we have privilege in the sense of telling our stories, and that at the time when we were born, both of our birth mothers did definitely come from poverty and didn't have the agency to tell their stories. So we really appreciate the fact that they were willing to share with us the story. I'll let Teresa talk about the next 2 slides and then we'll be done.
Yes. We have archives photographed with our birth family documents and that. And the next one, I wrote something about adoption. I always saw that one was like a tree. There was a root, a trunk, and branches. That over time I will get bigger and stronger. I felt capable of coping with that growth, always linear, always upward. But then it broke from within, and the trunk was no longer so strong, nor its branches. In time, the tree will grow strong when it is filled with understanding. Branches that were weak will thicken, and so it will continue to grow, with the roots already clinging to its land. So this is our contact. If you want to contact with us.
And this will, I'll put all of this in the event also, so that people will be able to bring this up themselves with the PDF, and I'll put the, the links and everything.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's it. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions,
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, you can feel free to raise your hand.
Thank you,
Or-
Marcy. I read.
Yeah, there's lots of positive feedback here that every page is giving people goosebumps, and experiencing birth similarities is so profound. You're both amazing, is what I had said. Just a lot of positive feedback, and just this was incredible. It really just was.
Thank you very much for
you can also
sharing this.
unmute. You can unmute yourselves if you have questions as well.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for sharing your story. I was able to interview the co-presenters a week or so ago, and I loved how they were using their platform to share their stories to get that out there, just like Angela just said, in hopes to making people aware that it's not something to hide, just sharing your story. And you don't necessarily have to do it in the, I hate to say the word typical, but typical fashion. You can do it in different ways, sharing it in photos and videos and different ways to tell your stories. So thank you both for sharing.
It's so powerful to me, like I said before, and I don't think I could really stress it enough, how similar it is for everyone, that it's, it's almost universal, right? For so many people that many, Teresa, we call them late discovery adoptees here in the States, or people who find out they're adopted later on. And many of them will say that somehow they always felt different. Somehow they always suspected, they thought that maybe they might be adopted. And the records and the orphanage, Angela, you were born in an orphanage, but you were born in an orphanage. Like just those words just don't coincide, right? They're just polar opposites. And so you were born in an orphanage, but you found your mother. So clearly you were not an orphan, but the same things happened here in the States too. It's amazing to me how so much of it is so universal. And to find the commonalities for me personally is bittersweet. It breaks my heart that other people feel that way, but it's also good to know that other people feel that way, right? Because misery loves company. I'd like to know that you're not alone, right?
Normally miserable, at least, you're normal with your misery.
I'm
right?
miserable, right? But it took me, I just said this to someone the other day. It took me 54 years to realize that the expression misery loves company doesn't mean that you want other people to be miserable. It means that you want to know that you're not alone.
Mhm.
And it took me 54 years to come to that realization. But this was just so incredibly powerful for me. I can't thank you both enough.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
having
Yes, thank you. I was going to say, even from the very similar to Annette, but I'm coming from the birth parent perspective, right? So seeing like, oh yes, I know that feeling. Oh yes, I know those words. And again, yeah, across the divide, doesn't matter where we are. It's human nature. It's incredible.
Yeah, and that you can't get your records.
No.
Does it vary? I don't know. I don't know a lot about Ecuador or Chile. Are there different areas, or are the laws the same in all of the areas? Like here in the States, each state makes its own laws regarding whether we can request and obtain our original birth certificate or whether we can't. Are there different sections of those two countries where things are done differently, or is it just across the board the same?
I don't know really.
I think it's different. I think each country has their own laws. Like for example, my adoption papers, there's this one lawyer that he's on my adoption papers. And when I was doing my research, like some of the other adoptees, their parents cut out newspaper snippets as well. And so through my research, I read like this lawyer, I mean, I can't say, but I think he was doing baby trafficking, because then there was a New York Times article that talked about this Ecuadorian lawyer. And it's like, it was an American family, and they're like, oh, we just want our children, like people are complaining about the lawyer, like please stop because it's interfering with us getting our children. But for a period, adoption overall had stopped. There was a pause in Ecuador, and that lawyer was a part of this practice where they were, investigating, because there in one of the New York Times articles, he sent a baby to Florida, and he kept showing pictures like your baby's healthy and everything. So the family goes to pick up the baby because the baby was with the lawyer for a couple months for paper work. And when they got the baby in Miami and went to get a checkup because they thought maybe something was wrong, the baby had a lot of health issues. And in the end, that family decided not to adopt that child. Eventually another family adopted him, but there was a lot of shady practices that came into play. So like for a period in time, the adoptions had paused. And I think even now that it's very hard to adopt from Ecuador.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you more about all of this.
Thank you.
Oh, I want to share something with you. I work in a project. It's about adoption. I'm going to send the link. Wait me a minute. It's about investigation. I got it. There it is. Transform adoption.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So,
Yep.
Now, did Chile and Ecuador both make it to The Hague? Or is it like Guatemala? Because I was going to say, I don't think I've heard a lot.
I don't think so either. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Guatemala couldn't Hague, and that's why they shut down in Guatemala completely. Of course, I could look this up.
Good question.
Google can answer us, and none of us know the answer. Google knows.
Yeah, and Claudia and I are so into this whole thing.
I know. We're such really bad adoption geeks. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Claudia and I could
Numbers.
talk for hours and days and weeks and months.
We've
on
already been
this.
doing it for years now. You realize we've been doing this for years,
Yeah.
talking to each other for
Claudia
years.
is basically known as like the face of birth mothers in the States. I'm like, never wanted the title, but I'm pretty much the face of New York adopted people. We both worked to change the legislation in New York. So now in New York, anyone who was born and adopted in New York can request and obtain their original birth certificate. So like mine are hanging on the wall back there. One's my original and one's my amended. So there's only 11 states. Well, now there's only 10, but it's starting next year. There will be only 11 states where an adult adopted person can request and obtain their birth certificate without redactions or restrictions.
No black boxes.
So no black boxes for us, right? But we, the organization, two of the organizations that I'm a board member of, we work to get it done in all of the other states. And there are states that have restrictions and redactions, but we will actively oppose those legislations because we feel that it should be, why should anyone be denied? Why should it be up to the parents to say no, right? So yeah, I can't tell you how much I really appreciate this, and I really look forward to speaking to you both more in depth about it all, because it's just fascinating to me.
Thank you for both of you, all your hard work. And I mean, it's just, that blows my mind that only 11 states have that right.
Mhm.
It's
Crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it only 2 states ever did not restrict the adult adopted persons, right? The other ones, like, that started shutting down in like the 30s. At one point, everyone had the right. And then in the 30s, they just started changing the laws to restrict the rights and offer the redactions. And there are many organizations that support the legislations that have the redactions in them. As I said, I myself personally do not. The organizations that I am a part of do not, because why should there, it's bad enough that we're already our own class of people. Why should there be 2 classes or more of adopted people?
Indeed.
So I bow in homage to you guys because this was phenomenal. And I know how emotional it is to tell your stories. And I appreciate the fact that you are both brave enough to do it and do it so beautifully.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was one of the things, like, so when Teresa and I talk about when we were working on the projects and processes, I was saying to Teresa, I was like, oh, like when I was working on my birth mother, Amable, her video, like I had to transcribe it, and that I couldn't do it in one take. I had to like do it over weeks because like I'd be listening to it transcribing and then I'd start crying. And so, it's this one thing as like a creator, like I know how to do my work, but when it was a personal story, it was a totally different experience.
It becomes almost like an out of body experience, right? When Claudia and I Claudia was my lobbying buddy when we would go up to Albany to try to get this legislation passed for 6 years before it actually happened. And people had done it for decades before us.
15.
But we would come back and I would just be like exhausted. And I would come home and my husband and son would be like, what'd you do? You drove to Albany, you walked around a little bit. Like, why are you so tired? And it's emotional exhaustion from having to tell my story. Like I was just like wiped out for days. So I get where you're coming from. Like you have to do everything at your own pace and at your own time. And sometimes you think you can power through and other times it takes your breath away.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly.
Well, you are two very beautiful human beings and I appreciate you both. Beautiful and
incredible.
talented and brave, or as I like to say, badass.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate this opportunity. And this is our first time collaborating. We've been trying to work on this for a while to collaborate. So we're so excited to
Awesome.
present together.
I hope that you both are the network. Our network community is open through the end of August. I hope that you both continue to check in there and see what people are saying, because people will have access to this video through August. So it's not just going to be people who saw it tonight live commenting. I'm sure that there will be other people commenting as well.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank